Many leaders of government and also from the judiciary in particular had only loving words for the judge Bob Witt, who passed away and was buried over the last couple of days. During the ceremonies of his burial, which took place at the PWFC Center, the Petroleum Workers Federation Center building, it was many gifted people who really had words that they wanted to dedicate to the late Judge Bob Witt. One of them, without any question, was the Prime Minister of St. Martin, Mrs. Silveria Jacobs, who addressed the meeting that took place in light of the remembrance of Judge Bob Witt. She only praised the work that the judge had fulfilled during his tenure as a judge.
His legacy in the legal realm is profound and spans decades of dedication. From his role in the Appeal Court of the Netherlands Antilles to his presidency of the Constitutional Court of St. Martin, the Honorable Justice Bob Witt's commitment to justice was unwavering. In the years 1994 to 97, he served as the coordinator of judges on St. Martin, Statia, and Saba, leaving an indelible mark on the judiciary, but also on the employees of the court and in the justice chain on each island, all persons who had the privilege, the honor to work with him. He truly had a heart for justice, his work, and most importantly, a heart for the people, taking time to connect with many along his journey. This journey continued, leading him to become a senior judge and intern president of the Common Court from 2001 to 2005. A chapter followed where he lent his expertise to the wider Caribbean by serving on the Caribbean Court of Justice, which I'm sure you'll hear more about, in Trinidad and Tobago. In living up to his obligation as our Constitutional Court judge, he would commute to the island, to St. Martin, to meet us as much as was necessary. As the very first chair of our Constitutional Court within the Dutch Kingdom, he even, to show his humility and his involvement, took on the designer's role of designing the robes for the members of the court in session.
Prime Minister Silveria Jacobs of St. Martin, addressing on the occasion of the burial of Judge Bob Witt. Many others had their words, among them representative of the Court of the Caribbean, where Mr. Witt was also functioning as a judge. He will be definitely remembered. This is Gonzalo Cuales reporting for Radio PJ82 out of Willemstad, Curaçao.
As the meeting started, we delivered the letter to Mr. Hato informing him that we are moving these meetings to our government mediator, and we gave him the reasons why we moving the meeting to government mediators. Reasons why, Mr. Sevilla. We had 4 meetings, right? And we're still waiting for the minutes from the meeting. And in those meetings, we make agreement, promises was made, and that was not fulfilled. So if there is no minutes from the meeting, that means to say that there were no meetings. A presentation of the structure was made, and in the structure, there is no job descriptions, there is no formation plan, there is no rating of the jobs. You know, there is no indication what is new function, what is maintained function, what is change function. You know, so the employees of the company can either claim a function or have to wait for a job offer. So all of those things are not clear, you know, and I believe that the management don't have no trust in the union. That's the reason why they were kind of reluctant to share information with us. And we believe it's because in December, we inform our members that the company is planning to send about 55% of the staff home, and while they wanted to wait until January 26, 2024 to inform the staff. And from that time up, information has been held back for the union. And because of that, we have a government mediator, and we're going to use that avenue to get whatever information has to become on the table, and the whole parties responsible for whatever agreements we make in meetings, and make sure the minutes of the meetings are forthcoming for parties to see and sign.
Obviously, the company has decided that it's going to reduce its workforce as per April 1st this year. What role are you hoping the government mediator will be able to play in that she will avert such a decision?
You know, the government mediator is there to make sure parties meet each other and have common ground. The company has indicated 1st of April they want to finalize the restructuring and the downsizing and termination of employment of employees that has to go home. Now, Stephen, from now to April, we talk about 3 months, right? And in between those 3 months, we have holidays. Yeah, and then we have Carnival coming up as well in those same 3 months. Stephen, restructuring does not take 3 months. You have to get the structure well together. You need to have the job descriptions well defined. You need to have the job descriptions well rated. Everything has to be transparent for employees to see exactly where they are, where they're going, and for them to see that, hey, my function is no longer there. Let me opt to leave voluntarily. Now, that is what we're looking for the government mediator to sit at the table with us to guide the process and to ensure that both parties live up to whatever procedures and process that is set in the document that we have to agree upon, because we still have not agreed on the documentation until for we to say that, hey, we have a set date.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
Social and health insurance. Your social and health insurances.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Selling of gold. Gold is an asset of the central bank that is owned by country St. Martin for 26 to 28%. So it's our asset. When the government of St. Martin wants to sell an asset, they need permission from the Parliament of St. Martin. Government cannot just sell assets. They cannot. Otherwise, tomorrow they go jump up and start selling the airport, or he's selling the harbor, or he's selling 100,000 square meters of land. They're selling it, not leasing it, they're selling it. For them to sell it, they got to go to Parliament because it's an asset of the country. We sold 30% of the gold asset that also belongs to St. Martin. So who gave that permission? The government? The Minister of Finance, who is their shareholder, representative, and is directly responsible for the central bank's operations? I don't know. I truly don't know. Not going to guess right now. I'll go find out within a week or two. I'll have that answer for you all. But remember, it was MP Bryson, the MP that has done the most core laws in the Parliament of St. Martin, that spoke about this central bank and the problems we are having with the central bank and the need for a national bank for St. Martin, which would also do developments. And maybe the APS would be someone or an entity that can have such a bank like Villanova has in Curacao. They own a bank. And the whole GB charade thing that we're going to do here with the houses was going to go through that bank. Not the bank in St. Martin, that bank. What I'm trying to tell you is that we have been talking about dollarization of the economy of St. Martin. And that we don't need a central bank, but we need a monitoring entity that we can make an agreement with the Netherlands, for example, for the next 10 years, assist us in setting it up and monitoring it correctly, use people like Dr. Eugene Holiday to monitor it if need be. And because the man was the second in command in the days of Emsley Trump at the central bank, I think he still knows what happens. So we have assets, we have capacity. But why would the central bank do that? Why would they destroy a 70 million guilder per year operation? Because that's what it costs to run the central bank. We have a building here with 12 people in it. They have a building in Curacao with about 220 people in it. So does it have any value for us? No, we get 26 million on foreign exchange tax. That's it. There is nothing else that you really get. Sabre Station and Bonaire are dollarized. The Netherlands is involved in that. So why can't we make a monetary agreement with the Netherlands so that we too can dollarize and we do what we have to do in our country? The assets that we will be receiving when the central bank is nullified, they just sold 30% for 500 million. That's about 10%, was about 165 million. So 1.65 billion, or maybe 500 million, the 30% that we own of the total goal, would have been the 500 million that we would get, and then we still have assets and all that when you finish sharing everything. I'm sure you'll get another 100, 150 million guilders. But that's what it would have been for us. With the tax reform, where we were looking at transaction taxes instead of foreign exchange taxes, we would have easily tripled, if not quadrupled, the amount of money we were getting from foreign exchange tax. But now we're getting it in dollars, because that's what our economy is. You see, it is normal for the central bank to find 150 reasons why we should not dollarize all the bad things that can happen. For the past 50, 60 years, 70 years, the dollar has been pegged to the guilder, or the guilder was pegged to the dollar. My apologies. And we never had an issue. And there will be no issue in the future. And all the fight with Brinks and the petrodollar, it is what it is.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
A retired, very well-known conservative federal judge is urging the Supreme Court to disqualify Donald Trump from office. Judge Michael Ludig wrote a friend of the court brief, and it makes a distinction between Trump's efforts to hold on to power after the 2020 election and the South Carolina secession, which of course led to the Civil War. Ludig argues that unlike the secession of South Carolina, Trump, quote, tried to prevent, quote, the newly elected president from governing anywhere in the United States.
He continues, quote, Trump incited and therefore engaged in an armed insurrection against the Constitution's express and foundational mandates that require the peaceful transfer of executive power to a newly elected president. In doing so, Mr. Trump disqualified himself under Section 3 of the Constitution. Now, earlier this month, the High Court agreed to review the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to remove Trump from the state's ballot. The justices are set to hear oral arguments on February 8th.
Let's bring in the writer of the Very Serious newsletter, host of the Very Serious podcast, Josh Barrow, is here, and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York and former Senior Investigative Counsel for the January 6th Select Committee, Temadayo Aganga-Williams. Thanks, guys. Given your role on the Select Committee and looking at this, I wonder what you make of Ludig's argument in this brief, because it's a big deal to say this is essentially worse or more detrimental potentially to the United States than the secession we saw, because it's about the whole country.
I think it's a powerful brief, and I think it's based on both fact and law. I think Judge Ludig here was a critical witness for us in providing the committee with historical context of what we were looking at with the acts of the former president. And I think what he's done here, frankly, by him and Dean Tribe kind of starting this argument here that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment applies, I think it's critical. At its core, what it's saying is that the former president, by breaking his oath of office and engaging in insurrection, has disqualified himself from holding any future federal office. I think that's a really, really strong argument. And what makes it even more interesting here is that he's really appealing to conservative principles,
Yes.
like textualism.
That was interesting as part of it. He's saying this is how you need to read it. You're a court that tends to read things this way, at least the majority.
Exactly. I think that's what's going to be powerful here. He's looking at the conservative bench, the conservative justices, and he's saying this is how, for decades, conservative scholars have read statutes, have read the Constitution. And if you basically stick true to conservative principles, you will arrive at the conclusion that the former president is not eligible to be president again. That the only way he could become eligible is by 2/3 of Congress removing the disqualification. But without that, the former president cannot hold office and should not even be on the ballot.
What's your read, not just on what Ludig is saying here, but just in general as this continues to play out? We head towards this February 8th. It's a very, very big day. What's your sense of where this stands?
Well, I mean, Ludig has been a big voice in conservative scholarship for this position. You've seen some other conservative legal scholars like Ilya Soma and Will Baud take the position that, in fact, the former president is disqualified. If you're going into a Supreme Court with a 6-3 conservative majority, you need arguments that might pick off at least 2 of those conservative justices for that argument. And I think, you know, in terms of making a textualist approach, I think if you're looking for a justice on this court who might be willing to pick up a very old document and say this, you know, this does give a surprising power that, you know, that we haven't had to discuss before, but it really is in there. That seems like an argument for Judge Gorsuch in a similar way to, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, he will look at very old treaties with Indian tribes and reach conclusions about powers that it gives them that undermine, you know, significant ways the state of Oklahoma does business, that drive other conservative justices crazy. He's open to those sorts of arguments. In the Bostock case about discrimination against
gay rights,
on gay rights, his opinion essentially said that that civil rights law has always prohibited, or has for decades prohibited discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. So it seems like an argument that could be made for him. That would still only get you to 4, assuming that you can get the 3 liberal justices along. I mean, in the Colorado Supreme Court, that has a 7-0 Democratic appointee majority, and it still was only a 4-3 decision.
Where does Roberts go on this?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know. Where do you think Roberts goes on this?
Well, you know, Roberts, we think of him as the institutional person here. And I think he's going to be thinking, how is the court perceived after a decision like this? And frankly, I would guess Roberts goes with the former president. I would be surprised here if Roberts allows a world that the court is perceived, at least, as being the dispositive factor in the election. Political.
The thing he doesn't want it to be.
Yeah, but I think that's what the judge here, Judge Ludig, is also imploring the court to do, right? Is to not look at, you know, the politics of the moment, to look at the text, look at the Constitution, and do what the law requires, not what the politics of the moment require.
Can we play the sound from Justice Sonia Sotomayor as we're talking about the Supreme Court? Because I thought it was fascinating. We don't hear candid assessments of things from them quite often. Listen.
Change happens because people care about moving the arc of the universe towards justice. And it can take time. And it can take frustration. I live in frustration. And as you heard, every loss truly traumatizes me in my stomach and in my heart. But I have to get up the next morning and keep on fighting.
Josh, what do you think the intent is behind that message?
I'm not sure that there is a strategic intent behind it. I mean, it seems like a description of what her day is like. I mean, I find it a little bit surprising, given what Justice Sotomayor describes there about the stakes of what is happening before the Supreme Court, that she is not retired. She's 69 years old. She's been on the court for 15 years. It's quite possible that Democrats will lose control of the Senate in the next election, and who knows how long it could be before there's a next opportunity for a Democratic president to make a new appointment into the seat that she sits in. I mean, Justice Scalia stuck around through the 2006 election, did not make it to 2017, which would have been the next opportunity. Now, he had Mitch McConnell running interference for him. But, you know, it can be more than a decade before there's another opportunity for a Democratic appointment with a Democratic Senate. It seems like that it would be the right time strategically for her to step down in favor of somebody younger if she's very concerned about the political balance on the court.